Brooks Running has a new shoe for you runners out there. Did you hear that? Better turn up your volume. In fact, turn it up to the max. Introducing the all-new Ghost Max. It's got all kinds of things to make your knees and ankles feel protected, like Max Cushion, Max Soft Landings with DNA Loft V2 foam, and Max Smooth Rides with their Glide Roll Rocker. Feel better on your run with Ghost Max. Learn more at brooksrunning.com.
Nurses, we just want to thank you for everything you do. We are ShiftKey.com. Log on today and connect to open PRN shifts in your area. Work when you want, where you want. You can even get paid next day. ShiftKey.com. Start today.
This podcast is brought to you by drunkmummysobermummy.com and made in association with HelloSundayMorning.org, changing the world's relationship with alcohol, one Sunday at a time.
Oh, the kettle's boiled.
Great. Perfect timing.
Should we get started then?
I'm Victoria Vanstone.
I'm Lucy Good.
And this is Sober Awkward. Right, Lucy, over to you.
Thanks, Vic. So whatever stage you're at on your sober journey, and Vic and I are at completely different stages, you'll know that life without booze can at times feel, what do you reckon?
Awkward. Lucy and I invite you to listen to our podcast where we discuss the realities of sobriety, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the cringingly embarrassing. Our honest and open chats will help you discover what it really means to be sober.
Yes, we're here like a dodgy bottle of port from your nan's drink cabinet to take the edge off sobriety. And together we can learn how to feel the awkward and do it anyway.
So it was 20 chicken nuggets, a quarter pounder with cheese, Fanta, Coke, large chips, Big Mac. I mean, no wonder he's feeling ill. Was there anything else, Alan?
Apple pie.
Oh,
Those are disgusting as well.
God, no wonder. How can anyone eat that much?
Oh, I don't know. No wonder he's got a dodgy stomach. Anyway.
Do you think he had it in that order? Because it's like the Fanta, the Coke, and then he thought, I can fit a bit more in, and he had some large chips, and then he thought, I've got a little bit of space left.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a Big Mac.
Oh, he just doesn't ever get full, does he?
No. Anyway.
Poor Alan.
That's an interesting bit of information to start our podcast about sobriety on what Alan had for lunch.
Yeah, and his pie.
Oh, yeah, you didn't put pie on the list.
Yeah, no, he said pie, didn't he?
Yeah,
he came in and said his apple pie. Yeah, so we're here. We're in the studio again. We've got new mics. We're all very excited. We're in the booth troll, and the troll is sneaking around outside, isn't he? Pacing.
Yeah, I don't know about this booth because you can never really tell what he's up to.
No, you can't see him.
We're in here. When we used to record it in the other room, all three of us were all crouched in around the pissy mattress. But in the new setup, Vic and I are in the booth, and Alan is sneaking around outside. Always makes me feel a little bit uneasy.
Yeah, I don't trust him.
And we're so sober and prim and proper.
Yeah.
We wouldn't touch a McDonald's ever.
Yeah.
Did have a McMuffin for breakfast the other day.
Yeah. Total lies. We're terrible as well.
And I'm meant to be a vegetarian.
Yeah, oh well.
So I'm not doing very well. Can't really diss Alan on this because
no, we're just as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we're here to celebrate Lucy's 1 year anniversary of being sober, aren't we, Lucy?
Yes, I am now 1 year and 2 days, and so I've had my 1 year soberversary, which is a word.
Yeah, it is a word. Yeah,
yeah. People have said happy soberversary, and
that's
I thought,
so
what
exciting.
A cool word.
Has it been a long year for you, Lucy? What do you think?
No, not really. It was a long first 3 months.
Yes, that's the real hurdle. That
which
3
ended
months.
on Boxing Day, the 3 months. So that's probably why that was hard. But after that, it just got better and better, really.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't feel as if I was sort of crawling into desperate for the year mark to come. It just sort of came around.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned on a podcast before, the best thing about it is that I'm so glad I haven't made the decision to drink again.
Yeah.
Because the stress of having to drink again and deciding how much I can drink and when I can drink and what might happen when I drink, all that's gone.
Yeah.
And why would I want to bring that back into my life?
Exactly. You begin to realise, especially after a year, there are no positive side effects. I mean, that short-lived high that we talk about is not worth it, is it?
No, not at all. What I will say though, Vic, is that it's been interesting because it's that time in your life when you can look back and you can remember exactly what you were doing.
Yep.
The previous year. So I was thinking things like when I got to the day before my year anniversary, I was thinking, oh, this time last year I woke up face down on the living room floor because I'd gone on a massive trek to Bottolo, off licence.
I remember this story. To go and get your wine.
To go and get some wine. And by the time I got back, it was an hour and a half walk. I was so tired that I just fell asleep. I had a winter coat on, a long winter coat, 2 carrier bags with wine in, and I just fell asleep face down on the living room floor and woke up like that the following morning and started
You would have
drinking.
looked like a dead polar bear.
I did look very strange. I just, I opened my eyes and kind of looked around and thought, oh God, where am I?
Oh dear.
But luckily I was at home.
And this year you didn't wake up on the floor.
No, I did not. I was snuggled up in my bed. But It was very interesting to think this is where I was this time last year and I'm in such a different place. Having said that, the week itself leading up to the sober anniversary was just the most chaotic, crazy week for me. I had quite a few bits and pieces that I had to sort out with my teenage daughters. One of them broke their finger. I had no work at the beginning of the week, so I was stressing about not having money. At the end of the week, a whole load of work all hit at the same time. Not complaining, love to get work. But of course, I was stressing out about getting all of that done.
Yeah.
I had some big bills come in and I was thinking, you can get as sober as you want, but life can still be a shit show, really, can't
yes, and
it?
our day out was a bit of an example of, it was kind of the culmination of everything that happened in Lucy's week. It kind of all went tits up, didn't it, Luce?
It did. Well, we had a lovely start to the day, didn't we? Our day was all planned. We were going to go to the Buddhist centre, have a little wander around,
be a bit zen,
and then we were heading off for a beautiful facial, and then we'd booked a high tea overlooking a lake.
Yeah, we were going to hold hands. Yeah, we were going to skip through fields of flowers. We were going to be a vegan all day, weren't we?
Yeah.
We had very good intentions.
Yeah, I booked a vegan afternoon tea actually.
Yeah.
But things didn't work out, did they?
No, things didn't work out, unfortunately. We were driving to our facial and we got a phone call from my son's daycare. I don't know if anyone listened to the other podcast, but my son recently had a choking incident in Perth and he's had another incident at his daycare where he's gone unconscious. So this is a kind of moral of the story here so far, is that we were able to jump straight into action, weren't we, Lucy? There was no fumbling around, wondering what we should do.
And how we were going to get there.
Or how we were going to get to the hospital because we were bloody miles away. Yes, so Lucy jumped into the driving seat. I took the call from the ambulance man, told the history of what was going on with Fred and what had happened in Perth and all these other things. And we jumped into action. And I got to the hospital very quickly and went to see my son and ran into the emergency ward and left Lucy stranded without a car on her soberversary, standing outside a hospital on her own, which was a bit sad.
There thinking, bitch.
Yeah.
She's put her son over me.
Yeah.
How can she do that? No, but it's really, really interesting because all of our podcast topics are meant to be. We'd already decided this is what we were talking about. But the funny thing that happened after that, and we can have a bit of a giggle about the disastrous day out now because Vic's son is home.
He's home and he's safe and there's a bit of investigating to see what's going on with him. But we're all okay. Yes.
So we are able to kind of breathe a sigh of relief and have a little bit of a laugh about the disastrous side of it all. But so I'm standing at the hospital thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get to my car? It's a 25-minute drive away. Did try and call my daughter who didn't answer. And then I saw the cab rank, and so I went over and did a deal with the guy for $50 to get back to my car. And I got in. And the cab absolutely stunk of old beer and cigarettes. You know, that
Yuck.
smell, the smell that I used to love.
Yes, it was
Vic.
kind of endearing, that smell at certain times, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I used to love it, like an old English pub smell.
Yes.
It was just a really manky old cab.
Yeah, classic.
And it was horrible. Like all of the interiors were falling apart. You can tell it's been through quite a few nights out.
Yeah.
And
Probably a lot of
it's-
vomit
it was
cleaned up in there
awful. Yeah.
over the years.
It was that distinct smell.
Carrot coins.
Oh. Yeah, it was horrible. So there I am, trundling along back to my car, thinking, trying not to vomit because of the smell, thinking, well, this is all very ironic. I wasn't expecting this to happen. And I actually felt quite triggered by that
Well,
smell.
it's like you've been sent back in time right there, isn't it? Like in a cab smelling of vomit.
And to think I'm doing this on my big sober day out.
Maybe it was the challenge that was sent to you by the higher power to say, look, this is what you would go back to.
Yes,
dodgy
maybe
cabs.
it was.
Yeah.
But what it did was it definitely was that smell, because smells are very, they can remind you so much of things, and it really brought it back to me. And I wouldn't say that smell made me want to drink again by any means, but it certainly made me feel really uncomfortable and reminded me of the trauma of my drinking years. And of course, as if by magic, we had already decided that that's actually what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. So today we're talking about drinking trauma, the daily reminders that can pop up out of nowhere and momentarily plop us back into who we once were, a pair of dribbly, wobbly drunks.
Yep, that was us. So we've called this episode the Sober Hangover, and it's a chat that could be a tad anxiety-inducing for some. I know it will be for us. So make sure you've got a nice cup of chamomile and the rescue remedy at the ready, because today we're discussing traumas and triggers, and not the drunken kind. Instead, we're going to share how even when we're happily sober, the trauma of our drinking years can come back to haunt us, sometimes when we least expect it, on our sober anniversary.
Yes.
We'll look at why this happens, what our own personal experiences are, i.e. the triggers, and how we deal with them in a peaceful, sober manner without going full circle and reverting to our booze hound drinking tactics again.
Yes, I like that term, booze hound. It describes me quite well.
Yes.
Like snivelling around like I was looking for truffles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sniffing out the nearest alcohol.
Yeah, or the free bar or anything,
Yeah.
like I was a booze hound, like searching down my drug of choice.
And completely focused on that,
Yes.
and nothing else mattered apart
Yes.
from the scent you were following.
Like a bloodhound.
Yeah.
Yeah, more like a blood with a pair of bloodhounds.
Yeah, that's what we should call this
Yeah.
podcast.
If we ever start a gang, we'll call us the Bloodhounds.
You should change your Facebook group
Yeah.
to the Booze Hounds.
Theboozehounds.com. People are like, that's not right. The reason we think this is such an important topic is because you rarely see it discussed anywhere, and yet it's a significant part and parcel of sober life. The fact is, Lucy and I drank heavily for years, and most of the years was spent on a soul-destroying cycle where we trialled and failed to moderate, each time with disastrous consequences that negatively impacted our lives on every level. This doesn't just turn on its mousy tail and leave us forever when we stop sculling Stella. It is part of who we are, even when we're squeaky clean sober.
Squeak, squeak.
Oh, sorry. I've got my pages all mixed up.
Oh, God.
You may already be sober, yet experience some horrors of your drinking years and wonder if this is normal. It may be you're preparing for sober life and want to know what's in store for you.
Either way, we feel having an open and honest discussion about what we call the sober hangover will put us all in a better position to cope and ensure those rainbows and unicorns stay firmly put in our sober worlds. I think the reason we wanted to talk about this today is because we want to let you know that these triggers that remind you of alcohol, those moments that take you straight back to the time you felt shame after snogging Rick from IT, may make you feel like drinking in early sobriety. But we're here to give you some good news. These moments do fade and get easier to handle the longer you are sober.
Yes, so we're talking about Lucy's year again today. So I remember Lucy saying very early on in her sobriety, we'd be out somewhere or going for a walk and she'd suddenly say, I really fancy a red wine. Was that your choice? Was it red wine?
It was red wine always, yeah.
And I'd be like, God, really? Because I was further along the track.
It wasn't really a very good thing to say to my new sober friend, was it?
Really? No wonder I was worried about you all the time. Are you all right?
Very thoughtful of me, was it?
No, but we're just saying like that does happen, doesn't it?
What I could do with a drink, Vic, couldn't you?
No, actually, Lucy, I'm 4 years sober, so yeah, I think you might need to read a few more books. Yeah, so Lucy used to say that she needed a drink, and I remember like that feeling in early sobriety, like things would set me off, make me go, oh, I wouldn't mind a glass of wine, or I wouldn't mind a nice cold beer. But those things have faded for me over the time. And now I feel a sense of relief when I have those feelings. So if I get that moment when there's a beautiful sunset or something, a time where I would have reached for an alcoholic drink, instead of me feeling triggered now, as I said, 4 years into my sobriety, I actually feel a sense of total relief, which is how this, changes throughout your sobriety. Your attitude changes and your mindset changes. And, you did used to say that, but you wouldn't say that anymore, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And I remember when we were first talking about me coming up to my 1 year, and you said, is there any chance that you would start again? And if you did, why would it be? And I knew straight away it was like just the one and only thing that is left for me that was good about alcohol was just that sort of that feeling after you'd taken your first drink and you felt good for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. And I can see how minuscule that is now. And I mean, I expect that's actually probably even gone for you, hasn't it? That feeling of,
because
what
I
was
see
that
it for
even?
what it is. Yeah, I know the repercussions from it. I know what's going to happen if I drink. I know my own behaviour so well, especially because we talk about it all the time and I write about it all the time. Like I can see every intricate detail of where I was going wrong throughout my life. So why would I therefore then repeat that behaviour again?
But yet you do still have things that happen, don't you?
Of course. And I still feel that feeling, but now I'm capable of changing that feeling.
You're in total control of it now, whereas I'm at the stage where I'm still a little bit, I wouldn't go back to drinking, but I'm still a bit wobbly and I struggle to deal with the triggers and from the trauma of drinking. And so our listeners, I'm sure, are at loads of different stages as to where they are on that journey and how they feel about the years that they drunk. Because you hate yourself for a long time for drinking and making a fool of yourself. And, it takes a long time to forgive yourself, and that does come up. So, like we said in the intro, you might have not given up yet. And so this chat will possibly help people to know what's to come. Because it was something that I just didn't realise was going to happen. And it wasn't something, I didn't think I was going to be triggered a year into sobriety.
Yeah, and of course, those triggers are what really often tend to make people relapse. So that's why we want to talk about it, because that feeling of anxiety that you feel in those moments is what makes you think about drinking again.
Yeah, and just to know that they can happen when you're nearly 4 years, like you are, Vic, they can still happen. And people do relapse after 4 years. We've had people at the sober group who, I remember meeting a lady who had stopped drinking for 6 years.
Yeah, and started again. And also things happen in life. Things happen that are out of our control, like what happened to us on Friday. Like things happen. I could never say I will never drink again. If I'm honest with you, right here in the troll booth, I couldn't say that. I would like to say that, but if something happened that was out of my control, I would like to think I wouldn't drink, and I don't think I would. But you never know, do you? You never know what's going to happen. I just have to...
We should call this a truth booth.
The truth booth. No, the troll booth's getting it's a bit negative, isn't it? But he is pacing outside the door.
We haven't got a troll in it, unless we're the two trolls.
Oh, yeah, we're the trolls.
We're the trolls.
The troglodytes.
I like it being the truth booth.
The truth booth.
The truth booth.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get started, Vic, with all of our things that trigger us and all of the traumatic things in our life, just to entertain other people.
Let's talk about the reasons we are traumatised by our drinking years, even when we're happily sober.
Yeah, because I put quite a lot of thought into this. In fact, it was my choice, this topic, because it is something I've thought about a lot in the last year.
Boring. Carry on.
Vic's thinking,
My topic was much better. No, it wasn't.
Vic's thinking, let's just get this damn topic out of the way.
Yeah, so I
And
can
then
really get some serious stuff going for next time. My topic.
Yeah, we always like this, but it's mine. No, this is the truth. Now, and I know all the listeners will totally get me when I say this, because the reality is we were living in trauma of trying and failing to give up drinking for 25 years. That's got to do something.
That's over half our lives.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes I think of a little timeline, like a single line with all the different big occasions in my life and just a big smudge going over half of it. And those are the drinking years. And that's what we're recovering from, that big black smudge.
Yep.
And it's so big and it covers so much of our lives that we don't just stop drinking and overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm talking about why we're traumatized, it's because we're stuck in this cycle, as I say, of trying and failing to give up drinking. And I've simplified, as I like to do, Vic, as you know, simplified what that cycle is into 3 points.
I'd just like to note here that Lucy is very tidy and I'm very messy. Like my scripts are very much like War and Peace with swear words in. And Lucy's is bullet points of one words, which we do have slight awkward conversations over, don't we? That I have to slim mine down and then she has to bump hers up a bit, don't we? But here we are. Here we go. We manage it.
I thought you were just going to bring up, because when we went through the script earlier today, I had a bit of a go at Vic because I thought she changed the format on my next section of 3 points.
Yeah. I said, oh shit.
I said, you've changed the format. She said, I haven't touched it.
Oh God, I'm going red now even thinking about it. I'm bloating up again.
But I did realise that I was wrong and apologised.
Okay, good.
You hadn't fiddled with me format. Anyway, the 3 points, the cycle that we've been dealing with for 25 years. Number 1, promising ourselves we wouldn't drink too much. Number 2, drinking way too much and making complete tits of ourselves. Number 3, having the hangover from hell, which included self-loathing, anxiety and physical effects, which made us honestly feel we may die, alongside loss of belongings, respect, friends, dignity, several hours of our lives, possibly our jobs, parts of our bodies, and God knows how many brain cells.
You forgot to add strangers popping their penises into your vagina. That was one of my top ones.
I very, very rarely remembered it.
Yeah, carry on.
That's why I didn't put it on there.
Yeah, that would have been my top one.
And then we're going to swing around back to point 1, promising ourselves we wouldn't drink again. And so it goes on with those 3 points for 25 years of our lives. And I would actually liken it to some form of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I thought that was possibly a little bit, could it really be something like that we're suffering from just because we drank too much for a very large percent of our life? So I actually looked it up online and Vic's going to read out what I found.
PTSD is a disorder characterised by failure to recover after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. The condition may last months or years, with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma, accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. Symptoms may include nightmares or flashbacks, avoidance of situations that bring back the trauma, heightened reactivity to stimuli, anxiety or depressed mood.
So, I mean, that is, isn't it? That's what we're suffering with, really.
That's what the triggers are. They're taking us back there and making us feel traumatised, yeah. And that, for some, can make us think, gosh, thank God I don't drink. And for others, it can make me think, gosh, I would like a drink.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be a trauma that, it can trigger that traumatic stage in your life that doesn't necessarily make you want to have a drink, but it's still a very difficult time to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we want to cover.
It is like a bad dream. That's a good way of describing it. That my drinking years do feel like a bit of a nightmare that I sort of woke up from.
Yeah. That black smudge or a nightmare, either or, yeah. But I actually wanted to bring up, because when you were reading that out just then, it really reminds me, and also the cycle, the 3-point cycle, it reminds me of your diary.
Yeah, perfect example of that.
Because your diary was, I don't want to drink again. I don't like myself for drinking. I don't like who I am when I drink. And then the next day, the entry would be, went out last night and drank too much. That's what was happening. And how many years ago was that, Vic?
I mean, that was 15 years ago. But I've got diaries from when I was 16 onwards that all say the same thing. It's, I went out last... I can see early teens, there's a point where I was enjoying it, but I still see that my behaviour was worse than most people.
Yes.
That it was more outlandish, that I was the one instigating, and that, it was from a very, very young age that I was creating this trauma for now. Yeah, it never ended. So,
and you picked up that there was something different about your drinking to other people's.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was the bloodhound.
Yeah. Was it the bloodhound? The booze hound?
The booze hound, yeah. The bloodhound sniffing out the booze.
You were, yeah. Whereas other people were having a drink, but not on that kind of level where nothing else matters.
No, I wanted to get blotto. That was my aim, was to get blotto and look how brilliant I am to everybody else. Look how drunk I can be. Yeah. It's terrible, really.
Look how fast I can drink this pint of Stella.
Yeah. No, snake bite and black.
Oh, but mine was Stella.
A Luton record.
Oh, you've gone up in my estimation.
Thank you.
Can I quick bow down?
Yeah. A Luton record. Oh, yeah. So that struggle caused me now to suffer in ways I could never have predicted.
Of course. And it's just such a long period of suffering, isn't it? You don't get over it that quickly. So next, let's talk about what sort of things trigger these negative post-booze episodes for us.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to go over quickly the types of triggers that I suffer since giving up drinking, which is there's two types. So the first type is external triggers. People, places, things, or times of day that offer drinking opportunities or remind you of drinking. And then the second one is internal triggers, feelings that just pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah. And so something like the smell of that taxi cab, that would be in an external trigger, wouldn't it? Yeah. But you can also, what you're saying there, Vic, is you can also just be on a thought process and suddenly bang, something. Yeah, I suppose you can just be thinking about something that's happened in the past and then you suddenly remember something ridiculously awful that you did when you were drunk.
Yeah.
And it actually can make me come out in a hot sweat.
I was about to say, it makes my stomach turn. If I think about, one situation, one really shameful situation, it pops into my head for no matter what reason, it actually makes me feel physically sick and I feel anxious.
Yeah. So that has got, so that's a physical reaction to the trauma that you've suffered.
Yeah. And it's in me, it's in me all the time.
It's part of you. It's part of your history.
It's because it's so ingrained in us and we've done it for so many years that it's just become part of us.
And something I've just thought of as well is that a lot of the reason that we drunk were to numb out or forget things because we didn't want to deal with them in our life. And that's our habit. That's our way. That's our sort of mechanism of dealing with things for the last 25 years, with blocking them out with booze.
Yeah.
And so without the booze being there, our natural thing is to block things out. But we can't. We've actually got to face them.
Yeah.
So when that awful memory comes and you feel physically sick, you just have to let it go.
Yeah,
you
have
let
to
it flow through you.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk to you about some of our triggers. And one of my biggest ones, and I have to say they are becoming less and less, but is drinking dreams.
Yes.
I don't know if any of our listeners have drinking dreams, but I had them pretty much nightly until I was about 9 months sober.
Gosh, that is a lot of dreams.
Yeah. And they were really quite horrific. And usually I didn't feel drunk in the dreams. It was waking. I was hungover in them and full of shame.
So it's the waking up point.
The hangover.
The realisation of what you've done.
Yep. Or not knowing what I've done.
So it's almost like that classic anxiety dream when there's a stranger chasing you down the road and you wake up just at the point they're about to plunge a knife into your back.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
It's horrific.
This can't be happening. It's almost like you save yourself in that moment, but then you've got to wake up and deal with the dream.
You do. And a lot of people, because I did put it on your group once a long time ago when I was first, oh God, I was thinking, when are they going to stop?
Yeah.
So I put them on the group. And a lot of people were responding with, yeah, I get them and I'm so relieved when I wake up and it's a dream. But mine was so awful that I actually woke up feeling pretty rough and sometimes with a headache. for several hours.
So an actual sober hangover, exactly what we're talking about.
I did, yeah. I had a headache and I felt anxious, and I felt the dream stayed with me because it was so awful that it actually ruined the first part of the day. I didn't wake up and think, oh, thank God it was just a dream. It had brought up some really horrible memories. Yeah. So drinking dreams were just such an ongoing problem for me. But now at a year, I would say that I get them probably about once a week. Okay. So they have dropped off, but they are big triggers.
Yes. Your dreams are much more interesting than mine, Lucy. My recent dream was that I worked in a poo factory.
Oh, no, that's quite an exciting dream.
It was actually. I quite enjoyed it. I had to process it in different ways, like pull it through a big pipe. And I had to bang a spanner against the machine so that it would run along a conveyor belt well and go into a plastic container. Yeah, it was like a food factory, but everything in there was poo. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, whose poo
don't know.
It was
just, but I woke up feeling full of joy. And needing the toilet.
Needing a shit.
Yeah. So, your dreams are much more insightful than mine.
I quite like that dream.
Yeah, no, I did too. It was lovely.
Anyway, I might tell you another one of my triggers now we've heard your dream.
Yes, okay. Move along.
I can tell you're enjoying this topic.
You might turf me out of the booth in a moment, mightn't you?
I might. If you don't behave yourself
and
start being sensible and serious like you usually are.
Yes.
I mean, another thing that when I think about what triggers me is something overwhelming. When I feel overwhelmed by anything, like even sometimes when we're doing these podcasts, I say to Vic, we've got too much to talk about, too much to cover. I can't deal it. I need to simplify everything. And I think that comes because of the kind of person I am. I like things to be organised and quite simplistic. But also, I remember overwhelm being a really, really big issue when I was hungover. Everything, you might be really organised in your life. You go out and get hammered. You're on a 3-day hangover and everything starts piling up on top of you, especially as a single mum. I was just behind with everything.
Yeah, you feel like everything's falling apart because you don't feel capable.
Well, everything is falling apart because you're not doing anything because you're just trying to nurse yourself back to normality.
Yeah.
And so whenever I feel overwhelmed now, that triggers a really, I feel unnecessarily bad when I'm overwhelmed. And I think that comes from feeling overwhelmed with hangovers. Mm-hmm. Something else that triggers me is other people's hangovers. So as I've mentioned quite a few times, I've got an 18-year-old daughter who, she's not a huge drinker, but occasionally her and her boyfriend will go out and they'll come back and then the next day they've got hangovers. And of course they're young. They can cope with these hangovers, but it makes me feel really uncomfortable. Mm. And even on TV or in reading a book, if someone's got a hangover, I can feel it. I can feel it in my very core.
Yeah, gosh.
And that drinking smell, the smell from that I was talking about in the cab that time, the smell of old drink, the smell of people who have been drinking the night before, that sickly, sweet smell that comes out of you. I had an old boyfriend who didn't drink very much, and he used to say to me in the morning that he didn't want to light a match in the same room as me because I might go up in flames.
Ethanol burning off your skin.
That's what he said. Another thing that that also if it triggers me to feel really bad as well is when I can't get to sleep because of all of those years of like when we talked to William Porter about how alcohol affects our sleep, and that 4 o'clock in the morning that he was saying you wake up and then it's as if you've had 8 cups of coffee. You feel that anxiety, and there's no way you're getting back to sleep. But of course we do try and we can't, and it's horrible. So even if I'm lying in bed now and I can't sleep, it takes me back, and I feel quite uncomfortable. And probably really the last one on my list is I can't watch Downton Abbey.
That is a shame because Downton Abbey is good.
Yeah, I know. Have you watched the movie?
I've watched everything, of course.
Well, I'll explain. Yeah, so I watched a lot of Netflix because I was an at-home drinker for many years, drunk. And Downton Abbey, I thoroughly enjoyed getting absolutely plastered and watching it. And there's a lot of drinking in it as well, isn't there?
And especially when you live in Australia, it makes you feel cosy and it makes you feel a bit homesick. Yeah. Even though we didn't live in the 18th century or whatever it was filmed, whenever it was, set in.
Yeah.
But it makes you there's nice views of British countryside.
Oh, I love that,
and
yeah.
You like the outfits and the hats. And
And so I drink all my way through Downton Abbey, and I actually watched it twice, plastered. And it really probably was one of the best things I liked doing in all of my life at that time in my life. How awful that is, I know. But now, the other day, I went to watch the movie, because the movie's on Netflix, and I actually pressed the play and the music came on. I thought, I cannot, however much I want to watch this, I cannot watch it because it reminds me of drinking.
Gosh, well, good. It's good that you didn't, you recognised that.
Didn't press play and rush out for the red wine.
No, yeah, well, exactly.
End up face down on the living room floor again.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That is an option that you didn't take. So that's
no, I did. I didn't watch it, but it's the same with Mad Men.
Yeah,
right. Because the ones where they drink a lot, I was drinking because they were normalising it for me. So and they were like, it was like someone saying it's okay to have a drink. They're drinking.
The normalisation on TV shows is really bloody annoying, isn't it? The only one I really love is Queer Eye. You know Queer Eye.
I haven't watched
Jonathan.
That one, yeah.
They drink tea at the end. They all get together and they watch whoever they've made look amazing. And at the end, they all sit around and have a cup of tea.
Great.
And at the end of it, I'm just like, I'm full of happiness because I'm just like, this is the only programme I've ever watched where everybody sits around and has a celebratory cup of tea while doing something social. I really appreciate that on that show.
Yeah.
Obviously, I notice these things, but I love that show anyway.
Yeah,
Jonathan's
you
like
do.
my favourite.
You notice all the drinks.
Yes.
And sometimes, I mean, I don't. If it's weird because if it's a new show that I wasn't watching while I was drinking, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I think, when they're pouring the red wine, I think.
I shout out at the television now.
What do you say?
I shout out because I'm like, oh yeah, drinking's the fucking answer, isn't it? All of it. John's like, my husband's like, thinks I'm mad. I'm like, here they go again, drinking to solve all their problems.
Nice peaceful night in with the wife.
I'm literally up on my haunches throwing things at the screen.
You're banging your fist in the air like this.
Damn you, Downton Abbey. I know, it makes me angry.
Bitch, pouring the red.
I know it does. It annoys me though, because I'm like, just stop doing that. It's just giving a bad message to my children
who are in bed fast asleep.
Yeah.
Tell us your triggers.
My trigger is acting drunk when sober. So we've talked about that. I do that.
What,
all
like
the
in
time.
front of the TV?
like a belligerent maniac.
No, Vic.
Yeah, so
never you.
My social thing is that I do act a little bit drunk still when I go out because I think that's kind of what's expected of me. And then afterwards, I feel this sober hangover and sense of shame afterwards, which makes me feel like, oh, and it brings me back to being drunk and being hungover. Anything that takes me back to any sort of past trauma, like my ecstasy overdose, which I've talked about before. If I feel anxiety, it takes me back there, which in turn would probably make me feel like I either wanted to drink or wanted to numb out in some way because I don't like thinking about horrible things, I guess. It's as simple as that.
And we've been using alcohol to numb out for so bloody long.
Yeah, so when you think about anything negative, your brain is, it's
how am I going to numb out? What am I going to use to numb out?
What am I going to use? Yeah, I just bang my head against the wall repeatedly for an hour. That seems to help. Children, anger, that's an obvious one. I mean, as a parent of 3, repeating myself again and again and again, like, where's your socks? Have you cleaned your teeth? Like normal, everyday things that children should learn how to do and never, ever do. I find very, very triggering for me because that's what makes my anger rise is the sound of my own bloody voice.
Do you think some of the trigger in that is the fact that you're sort of repeating yourself and you're not getting anywhere with it, which is what you were doing with your drinking, repeating the same habits and not going anywhere?
Oh, probably. That is probably deep down is what's going on. It's making me angry that I can't get something to happen that I desperately want to happen.
Yes, which is, that's interesting. Yeah. I desperately want my kids to put their socks on. Yeah. I desperately want to stop drinking. Yeah. There could be some similarity in that in your head.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
The frustration
takes me back there. Yeah. Simple things like the end of a day. I know it sounds crazy, but the end of the day was for me the time where I cracked open a wine or, the nice sound of a beer being opened. The simple ending of 24 hours of...
So when you mean the sunset time?
The sunset time for me is a real trigger.
And tell me, what about just after the sun has set? How do you feel about that time of day?
I never used to really remember that time.
Oh, because I find dusk very depressing. Very depressing.
Okay, why is that?
Because the party. I feel like the party's over. And because the
Right.
party, like I used to love daytime drinking.
Yeah.
And then, when the sun had gone down, obviously the sunset's beautiful, but then dusk would come and it's a very grey
Okay,
time.
that's funny because that's where. So I never did day drinking. So for me, the party is starting at that stage.
Yes.
So that's why
a sign that it's all beginning.
Yeah, it's all beginning. So I used to get excited. So I get taken back to that feeling when I see a nice sunset. I'm like, oh,
Here
I
we
just
go.
remember like, oh yeah, that sort of feeling of excitement for a night out. So that's
Whereas like the night time I like because that's party time. But
Yes.
there was always something about dusk. Even now, sober, dusk is very depressing. So I was
does
interested.
hair start to grow on your skin? Do you start howling at the moon? Like,
Only if it's a full moon.
okay, yeah. You used to be a werewolf, but you're all right. No. Sorry. House music is probably my biggest trigger, I would say, out of everything.
yeah.
My heart starts to go. I actually feel like I'm gurning, like I used to if I'd taken too many ecstasy tablets.
And you did take one too many
I did
once.
take one too many. It makes me feel like I'm going straight back to a rave and dancing with white gloves with a mask on. Not masks. I used to have E written on a mask and had a boyfriend that did big fish, little fish,
You really
dancing.
went for it with all the paraphernalia of the 90s
it
dance
just takes
music.
It takes me back there. I actually do enjoy now listening to house music.
Sometimes go and slip on your white gloves.
Yeah,
have a
because-
little dance.
I know, and have a little dance. I do sometimes do that on the balcony when no one's looking. I put on an old Ministry of Sound collection and I'm like raving on my front deck in the middle of the night on a full moon, actually, funnily enough. Full moon party at my house.
You'll have to invite me next time.
Yeah, even that song. Did you know that song,
You
Disco
like dancing
Revenge?
with an old dog.
Do you know that song, Disco Revenge? Yeah, that one makes my skin all go funny. It's like I have a hit of dopamine as soon as I hear any sort of good house tune.
So
It's
does
funny.
it ruin the enjoyment of house music for you? Because house music is I just love, but I have to admit it goes hand in hand with those party drugs.
It makes my jaw clench a little bit. Just the sound of house music, because I just imagine me in a nightclub toilet, probably not even dancing, just gurning and saying to people, have you come up yet? And
or looking in the mirror thinking how beautiful you are.
And who are you? Yeah. It was a very strange
my
time.
eyes look really beautiful tonight.
Yeah, you fall in love with everything.
Pupils are really
Your pupils are massive. Do not take drugs, people. They're bad for you.
Yeah. I love house music still, but I totally understand what you're saying there. I just feel sad that you're not getting the enjoyment from it anymore because I know my kids think it's really mad that I love house music.
I do still listen to it and I still enjoy it, but I do feel a sense of like wanting a drug or a drink to go with it. It's like associates.
Well, that's really why it was made. It was made
it goes
hand
shoulder
in hand
to shoulder.
with that,
Exactly. It's like I want to be at the hacienda with you know.
Yeah,
with the Stone Roses. And
well, I was just about to say the Stone Roses I loved all throughout my drinking days, but I have listened to them so much recently. Sometimes I think with that kind of music, if it does take you back and it kind of ruins the music for you, keep listening.
Yeah.
Because then you'll associate it with the present time as
because
well.
it can be nostalgic. Like I want to feel nostalgic about those good times, like those raves and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, it does make me feel a bit anxious.
Yeah. And I get that.
The other one is holidays. Obviously, when you have kids as well, they're not the same as they used to be. So holidays, it was a big drinking time for me. I just used to look forward to going boozing. And it sets off a real fight or flight response for me. Because there's no chilling out anymore. There's no sitting by the pool with a hangover in a big pair of sunglasses and a floppy hat ordering cocktails. It doesn't happen for me. So now I find holidays a little bit anxious, and still I find I would probably, it is the time where I'd watch a sunset and lean in for a drink. So I just find those a little bit intense still. Not that I want to drink there, but the association is still very, very clear in my mind.
It's an interesting point that you've brought up because I would have said that there's no point even going on holiday if you can't have a drink.
Yeah, I would have said that too back in the day, especially a cruise or something like that.
I think I'm only just starting to think now that, I would book a holiday now. It would still be good. I think what's the point of even going if you can't have a drink?
Same. I would think that.
It would just be a waste of money.
Yeah. But
even
now,
if you're going to the most beautiful place in the world, if you can't have a drink, don't go.
But now I would enjoy that place and I would appreciate everything about it and love the nature and the hot weather, and those things are enough now. Whereas that's such huge progression for you in a year to go like, actually, I would book a holiday and I would enjoy it.
I don't know. I'm not quite as far as you. When you said that, I'm like, no, I'm not thinking I would go, and I might struggle.
Yeah.
I would probably struggle if I went on a holiday without
Start at
alcohol.
Butlins and then go to
work your way up to Pontins.
Yeah, work your way up to Pontins.
I don't think they have those in Australia.
No.
You've gone all English on us.
Sorry. Some people wrote in. I did a little Instagram post on our @SoberAwkward Instagram page, and we wanted to know what your triggers were and how they made you feel. So we had loads of responses. So thank you everybody that wrote in. I'm going to start with one that came up a lot, which was festivals.
Yeah, because who wants to go to a festival sober? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Those horrible toilets, sleeping conditions.
Yeah. Jesters with annoying hats.
You've got to be pissed to go.
Yeah, no, you've got to be pissed.
All those jugglers.
I wonder, all those jugglers. I wonder if we would enjoy one now. Like, I love live music, so it'd be a shame not to go to a festival again, but maybe that's a challenge that me and Lucy will do at some point this year.
Maybe we should do an opera or something, No,
thanks. You're on your own on that one.
Okay. People mentioned pub trivia.
Yes, I used to be in a blackout by the geography round.
Oh, yeah. Or asleep, just because it was so boring. You have to be pissed to pub trivia as well.
Yeah, true. I know. Sadness. I was wondering whether we put sadness there because he didn't win the meat tray at the pub quiz because he went home early.
Now, that's an Australian thing.
Yes, meat trays. Yeah, for your English listeners in Australia, you win a meat tray when you go to a pub quiz for some reason. It's very strange for us.
Yeah, or a seafood tray.
Yeah.
Win a prawn. A crab, go home. It's a new meaning to going home with crabs.
Yeah, it's different to the 90s.
Shame. Someone said shame. Did quite a few people say shame?
A lot of people said shame.
Yeah,
a lot of people said
of course.
depression.
And that's what you were saying, that's shame. It
one
brings back horrible
one brilliant
memories.
one was unexpected alcohol. So turning up to a kids' party or something like that and everyone being on the beers. So a situation that you're not prepared for and you're just looking forward to in like your sober life, and then everyone's there drinking. That would be huge.
Yeah, but then again, you think, well, if you didn't know it was going to be there, then you didn't have to spend 3 days worrying about going to an event where there was going to be alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't know which is worse.
Yeah, probably just as bad.
Someone else said pain.
Yeah,
obviously it numbs the pain, doesn't it?
Yeah, just general pain. It could be mental or physical, I guess. Tasting food, for some people, they don't like it if they're out and suddenly they have a beef bourguignon or something like that, and you taste the alcohol in there.
Yeah,
I think some alcoholics do eat food that's had alcohol in it because apparently it does burn off in the cooking stage. I personally haven't really known that I've had alcohol in food yet. I don't think I have, and I think I would notice, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I haven't come across that yet, a problem with alcohol in food. But I can understand if you have something like, as you said, beef bourguignon, and it's got that certain taste to it.
Yes.
It would make you think, I wouldn't mind a red wine. Back to the red wine.
Oh, we are vegetarian at the moment, just so we say we do. Although we have the odd beef bourguignon.
Yeah, we're not doing very well.
No.
We're trying not to eat animals. Sunny Day.
Yeah,
I
classic.
can get that, yeah.
First Dates, the TV show, somebody wrote in. Yeah, so they're all boozing on it the whole time.
Oh, are they?
Same as Downton, yeah.
Yeah. Fridays.
Perfect, yeah. Sundowners on Fridays. Toddlers, like what I said.
Is that because they behave like drunks?
Yeah, also because they're absolutely mental running around the house with, you have no prediction of what they're going to get up to next, and you probably want to numb out in the evening afterwards, for sure.
And this is a good one, cooking. So, while I used to be this, I agree with this because, cooking roast dinner. I actually didn't cook a roast dinner for a long time because what was the point of cooking a roast dinner if you couldn't have a bottle of red with it?
Yeah, right. Yes, there's such a strong association there, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, but now I do.
Yeah.
Now I do. Don't even think about it.
Birthdays, of course, your own and everybody else's.
Any big celebration,
Any
really.
massive thing, yeah.
Some people said non-alcohol beer, which can, of course, be a trigger. Non-alcoholic drinks that look like alcohol. They're not going to be helpful for some people.
Certain songs.
We were just saying, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So certain house music. Mumble rap. I keep hearing a lot about mumble rap. My son keeps telling me about it. Oh, it's just when people are mumbling instead of talking properly in rap music. But they all shout about shots, like taking shots. And
yes, they do.
It's like really, really common in those.
Oh, yeah, and drugs. There's a lot of drugs that come up in those.
But I used to listen to Snoop Dogg and stuff, and they'd talk about sex and drugs and things like that. But I never thought, it would, it didn't influence me terribly. I just thought, that's kind of cool. But I suppose that would trigger you if you were sober.
Yeah, and I think that it is more direct now. I mean, there's a song, We're Going to Get Drunk, We're Going to Get High, that song now that my kids were listening to when they were like 10 or something.
Yes, and they sing the words, don't they? And you're like, stop singing those words.
Oh, goodness. I think they're just so much more direct what they're talking about in the songs. Yeah. So
hopefully the kids don't know what they're talking about.
Well, we like to think.
Yeah.
We like to think, but they know more than we want them to know because of the internet.
Hmm.
Someone has said barbecues with beer in plastic cups.
Yeah, something sort of cozy about that, isn't there?
Yeah, a trigger. Someone take the plastic cups away.
Yeah. Death of a family member, which we did talk about.
Yeah.
Anything like stressful.
Marks and Spencer's. This was an English person who has said Marks and Spencer's, I'm sure.
Yeah.
On the way home from work and grabbing a can of mojito.
God, that habit. There you go. Another habit that just runs in line with your drinking.
What a great journey home from work she was having for all those years.
Well, for what she could remember of it, I guess.
I'd like to know what you have now on your journey home from work.
Yeah, she probably has like a non-alcoholic mojito or something.
Yeah,
it's
or
probably
maybe
just a fizzy water with lime
fruit
and
juice or
mint.
a nice chai tea.
Good.
Like that.
One of mine is camping. I find camping very, very stressful to the point where now I actually avoid it.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And so any stress again, and in fact, my children don't know this, but I'll tell everybody on here. I put them to bed and then go home. So we have to
go home and have a sleep and come back.
I leave all my family at the campsite. So when we go camping, this is top drunk mummy, sober mummy tips right now. I put them to bed. We only camp 10-kilometre radius from my house. I tuck them up, read them a story, give them a kiss, zip up the tent, and I'm wheel spinning out of the driveway.
And is your husband around? Where's
Yeah,
your
he
husband?
stays with the kids. I leave him in the lurch.
I'm glad someone does.
No, I leave him there.
Your poor husband.
I know.
So
I come
you're
home.
at home in the night. Do
Yes.
you send him a good night message from the comfort of your bed?
I go to them in the morning and cook breakfast. That's my comeuppance.
Oh,
That's how so I'm there by the time they wake up. And they have no idea that I've been gone.
Oh, very,
because
very
they
clever.
know the result of me not sleeping well on a campsite is me being like a grumpy ogre for 24 hours afterwards. It's not worth it. It's better for them that I go home and get a good night's kip. So, I lived in a van for many years, travelling.
Yeah.
I've done my slumming it.
Yeah,
I can't do it anymore.
And I understand it as well. I once camped for 6 months in one
awful.
hit. And I'm the same. I went camping once and I was washing up in a campsite where you weren't allowed to use washing up detergent, and we'd had steak for dinner, and I was scrubbing away at these pans thinking, right, that's it, never again. And so I have never been again. But I like that tip of yours. It's a great one.
Yeah.
And but then that lack of sleep, Vic, actually probably does come, as we were talking about with William Porter.
And that's the trigger right there.
That's the trigger.
Yes.
Yeah, lack of sleep, you feel like you're hungover, and that's why you're so moody. So go home and get a decent night's sleep. Get it. Good idea. And so that's how you avoid and deal with that particular trigger, which brings up some trauma of your past. So we're going to just talk about how we do in general deal with these. Do you want to go first or shall I?
You go.
I'll go. Okay. So when something sets me off, like a drinking dream or a bad night's sleep, or even like you have with the memory of house music, because it does happen, I try and see it for what it is. So rather than trying to fight it and think, oh God, this is awful, I feel terrible, it's reminding me of when I used to drink, and then that reminds me of when I made a complete fool of myself. I try and be kinder to myself and think, look, I endured a lot of trauma. I think of that black smudge over the timeline of my life, and how big it is and how much of my life it took over and how hard it was and how amazing I was to overcome it. So I try and turn it around and think it's okay to feel a bit traumatized right now. I know why it is. It's because this such and such has triggered me, but I'm in a different place now. So that's a little bit like I've put for my next point, which is kind of the same thing, which is to, talk through the reality of this situation. So I am, I feel this way because that has triggered me from something from my past, but I'm not living in my past. I'm a different person now. And, if you need to make lifestyle changes, do that, do things you have to do. Go camping, don't go camping too far from home so you can go home and get a good night's sleep. Make those changes to avoid those triggers if you know they're going to happen. As I said earlier, one of my biggest ones is feeling overwhelmed and then suddenly feeling, oh God, I feel like I used to when I had a hangover. Happens a lot to me. So I then drop something in my life. I go through all the different elements of my life. I think, okay, because I do charity work, I've dropped one of those shifts recently because I was feeling overwhelmed and starting to feel really bad and horrible again.
So you're sort of managing your life in a better way to avoid these triggers.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just a small thing, dropping a shift at a charity job. But, if you didn't need to do bigger things, do them. I mean, some people probably have to move houses.
They have to ditch their husbands and things like that.
Yeah, massive things.
That's quite a good idea.
Oh, you can't possibly.
Freedom. Imagine me walking into the sunset.
Who would look after the kids when you go home to that sleep in your comfy bed if you've ditched your husband?
No, I'll be off. I'll be in another country by then.
Okay, see ya.
Yeah, bye. Bad luck.
Can I just tell you from someone who's been there, it does not work like that.
Sorry.
You have to accept that getting sober is a whole new way of life. And I've Vic and I have both put very similar ones down, haven't we? Saying this. So embrace new people and embrace new places. Like we were just saying, that don't have the horrible reminders. But accept that it's a new way of life and change your life accordingly. And also get help if you need to. If you're really struggling and you're finding that you're being triggered several times each day and it's taking you back, remember it is a form of PTSD. Go and get some professional help from your doctor. Find somebody you can talk to, even mention it on a sober group and see how other people have worked through it. But know that you are worthy of help.
Yeah. So I think as well, I'm just going to confirm pretty much what you've said, Lucy. These triggers, they are memories. They're memories of our past that kind of creep up behind us and tap us on the shoulder. And the only way to deal with them is to sort of retrain your brain into recognizing them for what they are. And therapy will definitely help with that. And it does, I think there's a really good message here is that it does get better the further along you go, because you start to recognize the places and people and things that make you feel anxious, and you're capable of managing, like we just said, and working out what sets you off and what doesn't. And that's really helpful the longer you go in your sobriety. I think if you keep having relapses along the line, I don't think it would be as easy to recognise the triggers. But if you keep on one solid stretch of sobriety, it will be easier for you to comprehend when it's happening and how to avoid it. So as your attitude to alcohol changes, you do too. I think in those moments as well, you've got to remember the outcome of drinking, the reality of it, the vomit and the anxiety. You need to breathe, take a moment and let the feeling pass through your body. Feel it, let it go, put the fucking kettle on. It's what we always say, is like sit it within that moment, feel the feels, and then go and put the kettle on and have a cup of tea and just be proud of yourself that you didn't reach for a drink. You're not quitting booze, as Lucy said. This is a whole new way of life. Everything will be changing. So don't expect things to ever be the same. Don't expect to enjoy a festival again. I mean, you could probably on some level enjoy it, but it's never going to be the same as it was before. You don't have to be the same you. You don't have to be that just a hat wearing weirdo with saucer eyes leaping around in a field. You can be someone else. You've done that behaviour. It's time to try something new. So it's time to be the sober you, which is hard sometimes. That's what we're talking about today. It is hard being sober sometimes, and it is hard to accept these moments in life where you feel like drinking or you feel like you remember what happened to you, your PTSD from drinking. But it does get easier.
It definitely gets easier. I mean, and I think after that, first 3 months, you get triggered a lot. And when you said about putting the kettle on, I mean, in the first 3 months, I can remember just sitting in a silent room, just thinking, I don't like how I feel. It's just horrible. And, I don't know what to do with myself because I was so used to reaching for the drink. Mm-hmm. You just have to let that moment pass.
And it will pass. And it will pass much quicker than you imagine it passing.
And remember that the triggers will keep coming and you keep dealing with them the same way. If they still keep coming, you might need to make some bigger changes and you might need to get some professional help to get through them. but they do become less and less. Look at my drinking dreams, which I was having every single night, and now I have about once a week. But what could I do? They just kept coming. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, you had one of my drinking dreams. I think you actually started dreaming that I'd started drinking.
Yes, I had terrible dreams about you starting drinking. Not me. It was I'd wake up and think, oh my God, Lucy's drinking again.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up with palpitations, think, oh God, how awful that would be.
Yeah. Because I'd kept telling you about my drinking dreams, and so I'd passed it on to you.
And then I dreamt you worked in the poo factory as well.
Did
No, I
you
didn't,
really?
mate.
Oh, I wanted to. I just don't know if it's human poo. I don't know if I want to work there. I don't know if I want a job.
It was.
Anyway, anyway. I don't want a job at the poo factory then.
Okay.
We've got some tips.
Yeah.
Moving on from the poo factory.
It's such an intellectual podcast.
It's like we're really going off on one. We're giving some really good advice, and then suddenly the poo factory comes up or something like that.
Yes, sorry everybody. That's just our weird brains doing weird things. Tips and takeaway. Consider tracking and analysing your urges to drink for a couple of weeks. That's a really good idea. So make a diary of what sets you off, all of these things that we've talked about. This will help you become more aware of when and how you experience urges and flashbacks, what triggers them, and ways to control them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And as much as we wish we could completely forget our disgraceful drinking years altogether, they are always part of us. In fact, it's possible that your least finest drinking moments are what pushed you towards getting sober. Learn to live with the past and continue to learn from it rather than attempting to block it out altogether.
Know that if, like Lucy and I, your failed quest for moderation or sobriety went on for a large percentage of your lifetime, then you have endured a very traumatic experience. You have every right to feel upset, wobbly and angry about it, even when you're comfortably sober. I guess what we're saying is, be kind to yourself.
Yes, always.
Always.
When something happens that triggers you and reminds you of your days of debauchery, try to spin your thinking about it. So, for example, if you're tired and it reminds you of a hangover, focus on how wonderful it is that you actually don't have a hangover. You're simply tired, and tomorrow will be another bright day and not day 2 of a whopper 3-day hangover.
God, they were the worst.
Yeah, and I mean, I say 3 days, but they often went on longer.
They went on until I drank again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was what, like 2 hours?
Yeah, not long after. Couldn't face it. If you are being triggered a lot and finding it hard to move on, maybe it's time to make some more significant life changes to your life. You could join a sober group, find a new interest, look for a new job, find a new husband, for example. Sorry, John, I'm only joking.
Have you got some problems?
No, I'm only joking. We'll talk about it later. No. Once you're sober, you're in control and you have the power to make great things happen in your world.
Talk to others about your feelings. Vic and I have found this topic around trauma of drinking is rarely discussed. We often message one another if we have sober hangovers, as we know the other will totally get how we feel. If you don't have a fellow sober buddy on hand, head to Vic's Facebook group called Drunk Mummy Sober Mummy the Group and share how you feel. We are all ears.
Oh yes, we love a good rant on there with each other, don't we?
Well, yes, when we love to, we love
supportive,
to go.
A supportive
rant. I get
Yeah.
that. I feel like that as well. Yeah.
Remember, you have endured a lot, and no one expects you to do this alone. If your drunken past is coming back to haunt you and it's bringing you down, seek help. Book an appointment with your GP, find a professional you can talk to, but know you are worthy of support.
Dealing with and experiencing triggers and memories of our drinking days are part of recovery, so don't feel bad about them. It's your body doing what it remembers, what it's designed to do. In fact, I think, Vic, you've got a quote about this.
Yes, I've got a good one this week. Avoiding your triggers isn't healing. Healing happens when you're triggered and you're able to move through the pain, the pattern, and the story, and you will walk your way to a different ending.
That's quite a good one,
It is.
actually.
I was proud of myself for finding that one.
The first decent one you've found so far.
Oi. Proud of my little quotey quotes. Book of the week is Blackout by Sarah Hipola. It's Hepola. In her memoir, Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget, Sarah examines how she drank, why she drank, how others responded to her, and the misfortunes that occurred during her drinking journey and her sobriety journey. I read this when I was still drinking and saw myself in every page.
Mm-hmm.
We will add the links in the show notes, and don't forget to follow us at Sober Awkward. We often ask questions to our listeners about the show, so our slow brains can sometimes run out of ideas, can't they, Lucy? So it's always good to get your input, guys. So yeah, definitely message us if you want to.
Yeah, if there's anything that you feel that we needs discussing, especially something that isn't often discussed or read about. You know us, we talk about pretty much anything, won't we?
Yeah,
anything.
Poo factories, anything.
Poo factories.
If you want to write to us and tell us about your terrible time working in the poo factory, we will be very open to it.
Or if anyone's knows of any job vacancies at poo factory.
Yeah, I'm in. I can pull pipes down. I can bang spanners.
Like, I'm looking for a life change. It helps with the triggers.
I wonder if Alan's going off to McDonald's again to go and get his...
Don't know.
Wait, let's open the booth. Wait a second.
I'll open the door. Hold on.
Alan, are you going off to McDonald's again?
Fuck off.
Oh, we just trapped his head in the door. Oh, Alan. Poor bugger. Thank you for listening to the Sober Awkward podcast.
If alcohol is affecting your life in a negative way, if you're struggling to moderate, or your hangovers are causing anxiety, it might be time to reach out for help. Contact your local doctor, a therapist, or connect with your local AA or sobriety group. Vic's got one.
Yes, go onto Facebook and just search Drunk Mummy, Sober Mummy, the group. Lucy and I both agree that even though this journey can be awkward, it's definitely worth it. And if we can do it, you can too.
For more support on sobriety, head to Vic's website, drunkmummysobermummy.com.
And Lucy runs an online space to support and inspire single mums. Find out more at beanstalkmums.com.au. Finally, if you've enjoyed the Sober Awkward podcast, don't forget to follow, subscribe, review, and share it with your mates.
Don't make it sound like they have to, though.
No, they do have to. I'm not doing all this for nothing, Lucy. No.